Wait, are you are you gonna count me in? Whatever. I'm just gonna go for it. Welcome to the Queen's Lead podcast. I'm your host, Amy Singleton, and as a child of the 80s, I'd love to say queens rule, but they don't. Queens lead. Being a queen means you are worthy to be a leader of people. The guests on our show do exactly that. They are leading the way in their businesses, families, and communities. And they're taking their rightful place in the spotlight, leading and inspiring the developing queens in all of us. Welcome to the Queen's Lead podcast.
Now here's your host, Amy Singleton, the queen of realness, leading conversations about business, life, and the real shit you want to know.
Welcome everybody back to another episode of the Queen's Lead podcast. We did a little skip last week with a non-Okie, but she's like one of my favorite New Jersey girls now. So I hope we're BFFs forever, Luann. But today we're back to Oklahomans with my friend, Suzann Wade. Suzann is the founder of Wade Innovation, a company that empowers entrepreneurs and their teams to achieve breakthrough thinking. She steers groups toward greater positivity and connection through creative problem solving, and through training, teaching, speaking, and writing, she seeks to empower others to recognize their best selves and their own internal strengths. She is a mom of 2 adult children. I know that feeling. Oh my gosh, guys, I wish I could say it got easier. It just gets different. But she knows the challenges that we women face at different points in our lives, especially with raising children. And her child especially has a neurodiverse brain. So that's definitely something different that we definitely want to talk about today. She is a brain cancer survivor. Holy cow. So she understands that life can throw us curveballs, and in her case, a literal hole in the head. So her journey in survival has led her to learn in all new ways, and she's done extensive training in creative problem solving, innovative thinking, and to increase innovation in her own life and in her clients. So she's worked with kids, adults, individuals, teams, and she knows how to connect with every kind of brain through her business, Wade Innovation. She wants to empower business owners and show teams that they can really work together more effectively, believe it or not, despite the fact that all we hear today is, nobody wants to work. Suzann, welcome. Thank you for being here.
Thank you, Amy. I'm so excited to be here.
That's a mouthful of a resume.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
there's
you're
a lot there.
You're an Okie, born and raised?
I am. I was born and raised in Oklahoma City, born at Integris Baptist Hospital, in fact.
Yes, which is still expanding ever more all the time.
I know, it gets bigger and bigger every day.
Yes. We drive by and I say, tell my sons, that's where you were born as well. So let's take it back to maybe not quite the born stage over at Baptist, but what was Suzann like as a little girl?
She was fearless and just out there, and exuded joy. I am the youngest of 3, and my sister is 10 years older than me. My brother's 7 years older. So I kind of was always older than I really was.
Yeah.
I wanted to keep up with them. But my mom tells the story that as a 3-year-old, I would go all through the grocery store telling people, I love you. I love you.
Oh my gosh. Yes.
And so she would I me in the grocery store because I was
most likely to be kidnapped because you're so friendly kid.
Yeah. And I kind of now at 53 feel more myself than I've felt since I was a little kid.
Oh my gosh. And that's why I started asking this question. I haven't always asked this question, but now I think I'm going to make it the first question I ask everyone, because I want to know if anyone else is in the same boat as me, where they were who they were until this certain point. And for me, it was maybe between 10 and 13. And then I spent all of this time seeking and searching and searching and searching. And now here I am 42 and I'm like, I'm back.
Yeah.
So is that it? Did your life kind of follow a similar trajectory?
It did. And actually working with kids, that's how the age development sort of works.
Yeah.
We're able to fully embody ourselves when we're little kids because we just don't care. you know?
Right? Yeah.
And
Right.
honestly, like the brain, like our brain goes through the most growth, like between birth and 4. And then from 4 to 8, there really isn't a lot of change.
Mm.
So, your 7-year-olds are really 4-year-olds in bigger bodies. And so
Yes,
that's
that
kind of
that
like,
makes a lot of
it,
sense.
it
Yes.
does make a lot of sense, doesn't it?
Yeah.
And then 8 is when your brain starts to realize, hey, there are like other people in the world. And 8-year-olds have the weight of the world on their shoulder. They really feel
Yeah.
like they have to sort of fix things and be
Wow.
responsible for things. And
Yeah.
then when you hit
Yeah.
that teen year, all of a sudden, your brain kind of starts growing again, but there's this big focus on kind of wanting to fit in. And
Mm.
so it's like, what do I need to do in order to fit in? How do
Yeah.
I need to change? How do I need to adapt in order to fit
Yes.
in?
Yes.
And that is like that second massive brain growth that happens during the teen years. There's a lot of stuff that happens that really kind of shapes our identity in terms of how we need to fit in. So
Mm.
I love brains. I love understanding brains. I love kids of all ages. I think every age is beautiful. Um, and I think that it takes us a while to like break
Yeah.
out of that. We still feel a lot of the pressure to sort of conform and fit
Yeah.
in. I think until we get to that point that we like hit our 40s or 50s, and it's sort of
Hmm.
like, well, that's a bunch of bullshit. I hope
Right?
that I can like cuss
No,
on here.
of course. Please be yourself. But like that's so true. I mean, is it avoidable?
No, it really isn't. It's how the brain works. And I tell
Yeah.
people, the brains, we forget the brain is an organ. It
Yeah.
is an organ
Definitely.
just like our heart. And,
Yep.
the heart's main job is to pump blood. The
Yep.
brain's main job is to keep us safe.
That's
And
right.
so, whatever the brain feels like we have to do in order to keep us safe, that's
Yeah.
how the brain responds. And if you think about, like, if you've ever actually been in a danger situation, like we had a house fire and we were
Wow.
in the house when it happened, your body starts moving
Yeah, I'll
before
bet.
it really registers what's happening, because
Really?
the brain
Yeah.
actually extends into your body. The
Hmm.
longest neuron that we have ends in our big toes.
Wow.
So, that is like all of that brain that's in the body, like picks up the sensory information, and our brain is processing hundreds of millions of things every second.
Yes.
And it registers all of that. And that's why, like, it's hard for us a lot of the time, but like when we're teenagers, what keeps us safe is being part of the crowd. You
Yeah.
know? You
Yeah.
you you don't
And
wanna
this makes a lot of sense. My husband, no degree in psychology, but has raised now 5 children, 4 successfully to adulthood. We got one that's almost 16. We'll see how that goes. He actually might have more hope than all of them. But he has said before, and he raised his 3 daughters, and I kind of came in on the tail end of the last one. But when my sons started getting older and, kind of bucking up and having attitudes and all these things, I'm like, what the hell is going on? It was the full mommy, mama, mom, bruh, like
Yeah.
cycle. And he said, the reason these children have to be defiant to us right now, they physiologically must be defiant so that evolutionarily they will not inbreed with their sisters and their cousins. They want to leave and move and go away out in the world. That's what they're supposed to do. And I'm like, I don't like that answer, but I get it.
Yeah, well, and it is the thing that they have to become their own person. And
That's
in
it.
order to become their own person, they have to rebel
Yeah.
against everybody else that has been part of their personhood,
That's right.
And
Yeah.
so it's kind of, I mean, it's so freaking fascinating when you look at it, and
Yeah.
it's why, um I mean, evolution is like so powerful in terms of how our brains evolved.
Yeah.
And one of the tricks that we have to learn how to do is like our feelings and our thoughts actually come out of our body. It's the
Mhm.
response to what's happening that brings
Yeah.
that first feeling and thought into our mind.
Mhm.
And the trick is learning how to receive that and then observe it, and
Yeah.
engage our frontal lobe then to really think about what's happening. Um,
Mhm.
because
Yeah.
our frontal lobe is not what engages first. It's what engages.
It's the lizard brain way back here at the
Yes,
base, right?
yes,
Like
yeah.
fight, flight, run, freeze, whatever the scary thing
Mhm.
is. So talk to me a little bit about kids. And like, since we're on the subject, a lot of us are moms. You're a mom. Your children are adults now, but um, talk to us about that motherhood, and especially as business owners or professionals in business, like how is it that we can help our kids and ourselves to go through those different stages of brain development? As you know, I look at my grandkids and these young moms that we network with all the time and go, I am exhausted just watching your life.
Yeah.
But also they're exhausted watching me worry about my 20-year-old that moved out too. So, how can we cope through those stages?
I think the thing is receiving the reality that um, if we believe that we are the best moms for our children, I think that really helps a lot. And that was
Mm,
something that I have to say was super hard for me to come to terms with,
yeah.
um, because my daughter was 2 when I was first diagnosed with brain cancer.
Wow.
And, uh, I emerged as somebody with a brain injury. And so I had a lot of guilt in
Yeah.
terms of the mother I could have been,
Hmm.
compared to the mother I was. And then coming to realize that being a mom with a brain injury actually gave my kids such a huge gift. And then in a lot of
Wow.
ways, I was a much better mom. And I think that is the trick is when you realize these kids are going to teach me what I need
Yeah.
to do. And so if I'm open to listening to them and interacting with them as full human beings and hearing what their needs are,
Yeah.
then that's the magic.
Mm.
And it's hard to do, especially like when they're teenagers. And I always hesitate to say this because I know there are young moms out there, but it gets harder, not
Right.
easier,
Yeah.
but it's
Right.
okay. You will
Yeah.
get through it. There
That's right.
for, millions of years, moms
That's
have
right.
gotten through it and moms
That's
have
right.
adapted and done things in their own way. And I
Yeah.
think the big thing is just realizing you're going to mess up. All of us are going to do things that our kids will need therapy about.
That's right.
It's I think more just like empowering them to be able to use their own voices
Yeah.
so that and encouraging them to express their feelings,
Hmm.
recognizing that when a child is upset about something, that's something to acknowledge
That's right.
and
Yeah.
encourage them, like thank them for expressing that, uh,
Yeah.
because
Honestly, that's something that my husband definitely had to teach me, especially with like my 20-year-old's first love. Okay, that first love. And the devastation that comes from that. And of course, my first inkling is like, oh my God, this kid, it's never gonna last. All of these things. And because he had 3 grown daughters, he was able to really come to me and say, look, as deeply as we love one another,
Mhm.
that is the extent of his experience in love. So he doesn't know a love greater than that. To him, that is the greatest love he's ever felt. It's exactly the way you would feel if me and you broke up. And I was like, holy shit, like that blew my mind. And so like for a kid that's really conscientious about their grades, bringing home a C, like that is the worst devastation maybe that they've ever felt. And we're like, don't shake it off. telling a kid to shake something like that off, it'd be like, them telling me to shake off that my husband just walked out the door. That's insane.
Right. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. And I think that the thing is that we don't, as a society, we don't interact with children well. I mean,
Right.
as a society, we don't value our children. As
Mhm.
individuals within the society, we do. But
Right.
if you see like how our society serves children, as a society, we
Mhm.
don't value them. And
Right.
so I think that's one of the things to recognize, that as parents and within a family, it is our job to really value them. And
Mhm.
I was in the ministry for 27 years. And I worked with a lot of kids. I worked with a lot of foster kids.
Mm.
I'm actually my son's third mom. Uh,
Wow.
he was put into foster care, and my husband's sister then adopted him, and then she passed away from colon cancer.
Oh my word.
So by the time that my son was 8, his world had crumbled,
Yeah.
and so
Mm.
um really just being able to be present, and to those moms out there who have children that have special needs, because on top of all of that, and Sean is very comfortable with me talking about this. He encourages me to talk about it. um
Yeah.
he has fetal alcohol spectrum disorder because his
Okay.
bio mom drank when she was pregnant.
Mhm.
And, a couple of messages there. First of all, there is no safe amount of alcohol to drink when you're pregnant, because
Right.
you have no idea what is developing that day and what will
Yeah.
be affected by that alcohol. And the second thing is, it's hard raising children with special needs. It's hard raising kids with neurodivergent brains. And
Mhm.
as undervalued as children are in our society, children who have neurodiversities are even more undervalued. They're seen as something to fix.
Yeah.
And it's not. I mean, if we made everything more accessible for all brains, oh my
Yeah.
gosh, the world will be so
Yeah.
much more fun and so
Yeah. Wouldn't it?
relaxed.
Instead, we want to put them all in this box and be like,
Right.
here, you're the workers and you're the professionals and you're the this. And if you don't fit in one of these boxes, then we don't really know what to do with you.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so and I think, when he came to live with us, I'd already had my brain cancer at that point. And I just talked to him about that he and I have brains that are different. And it's
Yeah.
just about learning how to figure out what works for your brain. And I think that's the big thing as moms, with our kids and with
Yeah.
ourselves. It's figuring out what works for your kids, what works for their brains. It's figuring out what works for you and your
Yes.
family. And
That's right.
if anybody else, I mean, if anybody ever says to you, this is the one way to do it, run
Yeah. No.
away.
Mm-mm. Run
Run
away.
away.
Run
Whether it's in
away.
business or in
That's right.
parenting,
Yep. That's
it's
right.
good when we say to each other, these are things that helped me,
Hmm.
but and you will get through this, you know.
Yeah.
Um, those are helpful things to say, you know.
Yeah. That's right. What's a not helpful thing? I mean, for those of
A
us
not
without,
helpful thing to say is anything with the word should.
yeah,
I do not
yeah,
like that word. I mean,
yeah,
should evoke shame.
that's right.
And it's just, and other people should on us, and sometimes we should on ourselves.
That's
And
right.
it's just not that
It's not good. It's
yeah,
shitty.
it
Really
is
shitty to
shitty. It's
should.
very shitty. Yeah.
So I
So
want to talk a little bit about your journey from like what you were doing. Like, how did you get to where you are coaching all of these people? You said you were in ministry for 27 years. I'm sure that really laid a huge foundation, not only for working with people of all ages, but communication specifically.
yeah, it was a journey. Uh, I I had been in the ministry, prior to my brain cancer. and just wound up by accident and necessity, wound up working in children's ministry. We moved to Austin, Texas, biggest college town, one of the biggest college towns in the country, you know. I did tell my husband when we moved down there that he, like, because I've been OU, sooner bred, sooner born my entire life, you know. And so I said, you know how much I love you, that I'm moving to Austin, Texas.
That's huge, right?
Texas.
But did you tell him you were not wearing that god awful orange because it is not your signature color?
No,
not your color wheel.
No. And our daughter actually was born in Austin. So, and we loved being there. But I had been in college ministry, and I don't know how many dozens of resumes I sent out. And, you know, it was like, oh my gosh. We got down there, we had $1,000 in the bank. Our rent, and you know, this is in 1995. Okay. Our rent was $1,100 a month. That's how expensive Austin was even then. I can't imagine how expensive it is now. And so it was sort of like, you know, and it was a 2-bedroom kind of just, you know, typical apartment, nothing fancy. And so I was like, how the hell are we going to do this? And so I didn't have a job yet. And I literally went and I like threw myself at the feet, not actually, but I felt like I did, of the superintendent for that area and I gave him my resume. And the next day I get this call and I answer the phone and the man says, hello, this is Wynn Alley from St. John's United Methodist Church. And we're looking for a children's minister. And I didn't know if you would be interested. And I was like, children, I love children.
Love children.
I did have a niece and 2 nephews. So, I mean, and so it was like, I really did love kids. But I went and I interviewed, and within that week I was hired. My paycheck came the day before our rent was due.
Wow.
So I know, I mean, it was totally a God thing that happened. And so I wound up in children's ministry, and it was so amazing. I had a mentor. Her name was Catherine Foster, and she had been forced to retire because like there was an age limit that they were like, you have to retire now. But she looked at me, and here I am, you know, I'm 24 at this point, no kids. And she says, the first thing you need to do is teach a parenting class. And I'm like, wait, what? And
24-year-old girl with no kids? Sure, that'll go over like a lead balloon.
But she gave me this book, and it was How Do Our Children Grow? And so I taught this parenting class, and it was amazing. It really laid this beautiful foundation for everything. Like in the class, it was like talking about how you know, you should never like lie to your kids, always tell them the truth, because what they're imagining is way worse than what the reality is. And they think everything is their fault, you know, because the world revolves around them. So it's being open and honest with your kids, which was amazingly helpful when I was diagnosed with my brain cancer. I knew the first conversations I had to have was with the kids in my life. And so, and I remember when I told Madeline, she was 2, and I told her that I was going to have to be going to the doctor more because there was something in my head that wasn't supposed to be there. And I said, grown-ups call it a tumor. And she looked at me and she goes, what do kids call it? And I said, I don't know. What do you think kids call it? And she goes, a yucky.
I love it. A yucky.
Yeah.
Yep.
Have like I had to take my yucky medicine and all this kind of stuff. But that really laid the foundation then for me to continue that work with kids throughout that ministry process. And in that process, I wound up like, I just walked through doors that opened, you know. I got an email about an opportunity to write curriculum, and my undergrad was in professional writing. And so I was like, this is amazing. So I went and I wrote curriculum for 7 or 8 years, and I loved it because I was in the room with, you know, people who are like, a lot of people that I love being in rooms where people are smarter than me and I can keep up. the
Yeah.
kind of people that are like, hey, yeah, come along, come along.
Right. Yes.
I love that. And so that really laid a strong foundation. And then I went to a creativity conference here in Oklahoma City, and there was a woman who was teaching an afternoon class on creative problem solving. And I was like, I want to take that class. So I paid the extra money. And when we
Yeah.
didn't have money, all of these things, I'm walking through doors and we don't really have the money, but I'm still walking
Yep.
through them. And it was just amazing. And she's one of the creators. Her name's Sarah Thurber. She's one of the creators of the Foresight Thinking Profile, which is an assessment tool that I use in my business.
Mhm.
And I just was hooked. I was like, this makes so much sense. And
Yeah.
so I went and I got trained as a facilitator. And all this time I'm still in the ministry. And I saw
Yeah.
it as this is a great opportunity for me to use this within the
Mhm.
church.
Yeah.
And that was really kind of where my thought process was. And so I did that. And I'm just talking nonstop here. Anytime you want to
No,
just
you're great. No.
um, so I went and I got trained in the Foresight Thinking Profile. I met brilliant people. I met Gerard Puccio, who is he is one of the like over the creative problem solving um, degree that's at Buffalo State. And so you can get a degree in creativity some places. And so he's like
Wow.
yes, I know, isn't that amazing? But it was he was one of the creators, and then Blair Miller. And so I did the training with them, and there were all these fabulous people there. And then they invited me back, and they were like, how would you like to come back when we're talking about new things we're doing and give us feedback on it? And so I was like, yes, I would love that. And so I got invited. I know. And the whole time I'm like, hi, I'm a children's minister. So I went back a few times, and the last one that we had pre-COVID, a lot of these were in Florida too during the winter, which was always a perk. But we went back, and the last one, I remember we were looking at a ton of the research that's behind it. And so it was very statistic driven and in depth and all of this kind of stuff. And I'm sitting at the table, and we get to the part where we're introducing each other. And so I introduce myself, and then the man next to me introduces himself, and he says, and I'm the lead educator at Joint Special Forces Operations. And I was like, okay. And so I was sitting at the table, and we were introducing ourselves. And so I introduced myself, and I'm like, I'm Suzann Wade. I'm a children's minister from Oklahoma City. And the man next to me, and I can't remember his last name, but he's like, hi, I'm Ken, and I'm the lead educator for Joint Special Forces Operations.
Oh my gosh.
I know. And
Holy cow.
he's like one of the people that started Joint Special Forces. Like
Wow.
it started in around 1980, in the early
Mhm.
80s. And see, you're not going to remember this because you're 10 years younger than me, but there was an Iranian hostage crisis.
Oh
and
yeah. I remember
and
reading
so
about that.
there was a group of Marines that their helicopter went down. And one of the issues was that the different special forces weren't communicating with each other. And so Ken
Mm.
was one of the people that said, I think that we need to have a place where all of the special forces are trained, so that they're trained in the same language and
Yeah.
the same communication. So they're all communicating with each other on large operations like that. Well,
Yeah.
one of the
Wow.
things that they're trained in is the foresight thinking profile, because shit
Mhm.
goes wrong in the field. And so
For
the
sure.
way
Yeah.
the way creative problem solving works is you recognize that when you're presented with a challenge or an opportunity or a problem, you you have to kind of go through 4 steps. First, you have to clarify. You have to really recognize what is the problem, what
Yeah.
is happening right now. Because a
Mhm.
lot of times what we think is the problem isn't the problem.
Isn't really the problem.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then you have to, it's called ideating, but basically it's just like coming up with all sorts of ideas without
Mhm.
editing yourself. And so with each of these, you have to like get your thinking as wide as you can and then sort of come back. So you diverge in your thinking
Yeah.
and then you converge back in. And then the third step is to develop, which that's really when you're formulating the plan, like what are all the things we would need to do to accomplish this? And then what
Yeah.
order do we need to do them in? And who needs to do what? And then you implement, which is essentially doing it. But also part of implementing is thinking about what did we do before, and
Mhm.
what failed before and why did it fail?
Yeah.
And so
Brilliant.
that's kind of like, and they're drilled in this. And Ken
Mhm.
has taught our special forces. He's gone and taught special forces in other countries. And it's so funny because he and I were so excited by each other because
Yeah.
he was like, I would love to do this in my church. I think it would be so great to do it in a church. And so, like, whenever, like, we do everything on Zoom now, we do the like,
Mhm.
here's the new thing kind of thing on Zoom. And so we meet up
Yeah.
on Zoom. And whenever Ken and I are on Zoom together, it's just like we get so excited to see each other. We just
That's so
fangirl on
fun.
each other.
That's so awesome. I
Yeah.
love that.
So that's
The
kind of
power
how
of
I got
networking.
into it,
So you
just
use
walking
this
through doors.
framework. Yeah. And you use this framework to help coach teams. Let's talk a little bit about your business now that we've kind of
Yeah.
gone through that whole circle. I want to know, like, how can people work with you, and like how do you use that communication framework to help people in their teams?
Well, I work with like teams and I also work with individuals. With teams, I like look at, like, I assess everybody on the team. And like right now I'm working with a company that has multiple teams within the company. And
Yeah.
so you're doing like, it's like 7 team trainings and you get
Mhm.
to the end of that. And then you're like, okay, here's what the company looks like. And the way the assessment works is it measures where you get energized and drained in
Yeah.
that problem solving process. So where you get energized is where your brain is subconsciously going to go whenever you're presented with a challenge. Like
Mhm.
if you get energized by the implementing, whenever there's a challenge, you're just going to do it,
Yeah.
and
Mhm.
whether it's somebody else's role to do or, it's your role to do, you're just going to do it. It needs to be done. You're going to do it.
Yeah.
I'm high in ideating. So you present me with a challenge and I can have like 40 ideas for you within just a
Yeah.
matter of minutes.
Yeah.
And I get all scattered and I think big picture. And so I start talking in ways that people are like, I have no idea what you're talking about right now. And I'm
Yeah.
like, don't
Yeah.
you see how this connects to this and this and this? Um, and so it's learning where you're energized so that you can know that subconsciously that's where your brain wants to go and being aware
Yeah.
of that, but also realizing that that's kind of a superpower you have.
Mhm.
But preference doesn't equal ability. Like
Yeah.
there are people that are like, I can dig deep onto a problem, you know,
Mhm.
I can clarify, I can help people really clarify what's going on. Um,
Mhm.
and and so I have strong ability there. But it's just the part that's going to bring me energy is that ideating part. And the part
Mhm.
that will drain me is the implementing part. And so after doing
Yeah.
this for a lot of years, I've learned that when it comes to implementing, I literally ideate my implementing. I'm like, what are all the things I can take with me that are going to help make this better? And so like
Mhm.
I don't know. I don't know what I look like. I look like a crazy lady with all of these bags of stuff that I bring to any training. I bring toys, I bring crayons, I bring all sorts of different things. And I bring little things that will help, that will be like object lessons, that
Mhm.
here's going to help you understand this more. But that's me ideating. And a lot of times
Yeah.
it's like as I walk out the door, I'm like, is there anything else I can bring? So,
Yeah.
but
Oh.
but when you do that with a team, then you're able to get this team profile that shows like where your preferences and where the team has preferences and gets drained. And if you have like a team that everybody on the team gets drained by implementing, that's something you have to be aware of and go, okay, so this is one of those things that you guys really are going to need to focus on being intentional about your implementing, and how can you become more intentional about it? And it helps team leaders understand how to speak to people too.
That's huge.
Yeah, because, and there are a lot of assessments that do that they help, like, this is the language that this person talks, and this is the language this person talks.
Yeah.
And I love that Foresight has that component, but it also has the component of every single person needs to know how to do all 4 of these steps. And so like in a team training, what I do is I have everybody talk about, like, everybody writes down an obstacle that they see or a challenge they see in their area. And then I have them reframe that as 4 or 5 different questions.
Yeah.
And then we then spend time, then everybody comes up, and I love Post-its. I adore Post-its, and I have Post-its of all sizes. I'm looking at a giant Post-it in my room right now, in my bedroom right now, that is like things that I need to follow up on. And so, but I have giant Post-its up, and then, like, there's one for clarify and ideate and develop and implement. And so everybody comes up, and they put all their like questions in the clarifying, and then everybody, like, we decide what's a question that we want to move forward with, what's the challenge that we really want to tackle, and then everybody like ideates for 3 minutes. And some people, like, 3 minutes is an eternity for them to ideate. I will say the company that I'm in now, there is one person that it's just an ideator, and then another person who has a slight preference for ideation. And this is a company of like close to 40 people. So
like, we need some more idea people over
like,
here.
This guy, when you're needing to just play around with ideas, you go see him and just sit with him for a while. But then, like, everybody like comes up with ideas, and we put the ideas up, and what the ideas are, and then we kind of like move forward, and it's like, which ideas do we really want to develop and then implement? So like, as a team, we actually work a problem in this style, and it helps teams to learn to stop and work the problem
together,
because so many times we're like, oh, there's a problem, and we'll just go, well, this is a problem, this is a problem, there's this problem here, and we just talk about the problem, the existence of the problem, or we just try to just like muscle our way through it. And there's nothing that you should really muscle your way through.
That's it.
Even in the gym, you'll get hurt.
Yeah. That's it. I mean, I think that the 2 things that come to mind are the things that John, I'm blessed to be able to sit in a room with John Maxwell once a month, and on our call, or it's in a Zoom room most of the time, but this month he said, just this last week, there are 2 things that business owners need to know. One, you are not enough of this, like, you're everything and you're all this one, it takes a team. It takes more than just you. You're not enough. And also, there is always a better way.
Yes.
He's like, there's always, I don't care if you have been, I don't care if Ford Motor Company, like, there's probably a better way for their manufacturing to work right now, and it's out there somewhere. So like, those 2 things are exactly what you're pulling in here, is like, you got to have ideas, you got to have better ways, and you got to communicate and work together.
One of the stories that like I tell a lot is I was told here in Oklahoma City, when I was diagnosed with my brain cancer, the first person that told me, it was after I'd had my biopsy, and at this point I knew that there was something in my head for 18 months.
Wow.
They found it because I had a separate neurological condition that had caused me to lose my eyesight for a while.
Oh my goodness.
And so I have to live, I think, until like 87 or so before I will be older than the number of MRIs that I've had. Because just with the checkups
your
that
heart.
I'll have to keep
Yeah, I'm
having.
sure. Holy
But
cow.
this doctor who'd done the biopsy, he came into the room and he said, well, you have stage 3 astrocytoma, which it wasn't an astrocytoma, but he said you have a stage 3 astrocytoma, so you probably have a couple of years to live. Go home and kiss your baby, get your affairs in order. And he looks down, he goes, oh, I see you're a minister. Isn't it good? You know, you're going to a better place. I kid
That's
you
what he said.
not. That is almost exactly what he said. Yes.
I hope I don't know who that surgeon was, because I worked with a lot of neurosurgeons around here. Don't tell me his name.
I will.
Oh my God.
I will.
Oh,
It was
that's
like,
horrible.
Yes, but it
Oh,
was
my
one of,
word.
like, at that point, it was one of the best in the city, best offices in the city at that point.
Great bedside manner, let me tell you.
Yeah, but
Grief.
then the only thought I really had in my mind at that moment, Amy, was please don't let my mother kill this man, because my mother was
just
sitting there. And
Oh,
I was
yeah,
like,
my mom, my little 5-foot mama would have been like spider monkeying on the dude.
yeah, you know.
Oh,
And
my
so
word.
later that night, my husband and I, we were this was at Mercy. My husband and I were looking out the window, and it just, we both, you know, had this overwhelming feeling come over us, you know, a peace of God, which makes no sense in the moment, that peace of God that surpasses understanding that Paul talks about in Philippians. And we were just like, no, it's not going to be that way. And so we, like, again, doors opened, you know, and my mom called my uncle to tell him, and he broke down when he got off the phone. His business partner was there at his house, which my uncle's a very private man. I don't know that he would have said as much to his business partner had he not been right there. And the business partner said, well, she should call my ex-sister-in-law. She was a neurosurgeon in California. So I call this woman, and the woman actually had a special needs son and a mom who had cancer. So she had moved back to neurology and wasn't doing neurosurgery at the point. But she spent 3 hours on the phone with me. She had me read everything that I had. And this is another thing. If you have a scan done, get a copy of your scan. Make sure that you have copies of your records. You are entitled to have all of those.
Yeah, for sure.
And so I had everything at the house, and I read through everything with her. And she said to me, she said, Suzann, until you get to a brain tumor center, you don't know what can or can't be done.
That's right. Yeah.
And so I was like, okay. And so I had a follow-up appointment with my neurosurgeon, and I go into him, and we had decided we were going to the University of California, San Francisco, and Mitch Berger was the surgeon that I was going to go see. And so I go into my surgeon here, and he says to me, he says, well, there's not really much we can do. And if there was something, I would know about it. And I said, well, I'm going to go get a second opinion. And he said, well, if you're determined to get a second opinion, first of all, what? He said, then you
I think
should
he
go
would be welcoming that.
Yeah. He said, you should go see my friend Mitch Berger in San Francisco. And I'm like, well, what a coincidence, because that's the name I have right here. And so we get out there, and I sit down, and Dr. Berger is this giant of a man. And he actually tried out for the Chicago Bears and was like, was on their team. And then he said he decided he wanted to crack skulls a different way. And so he went and he became a neurosurgeon. But he had massive hands, you know, and so just this big bear of a guy. And he sits down and he looks at my scan. He goes, I want to take it out. And I was like, you can do that? And he said, yeah. And I said, so how many of these have you done? He goes, 8 a week for 15 years. I'm like, sweet. And he said, but if you don't feel comfortable, here are 3 other names that you can go talk to. And so it was just one of those things about how accessible people are when they're at the highest level. And so he scheduled the neurosurgery, and we came back home. And I'm the kind of person, I went and I bought the neurosurgical textbook, and I bought a
Oh my
medical
God.
dictionary, and I read the entire neuro-oncology textbook that he had
Wow.
edited. And so I knew,
Holy
because
cow.
I'm somebody that the facts,
Yeah.
they comfort me. The more I
Hmm.
know, the more comfort I have.
Sure.
And
Yeah.
so we went back and he did the surgery. And the reason they could do the surgery is they had the ability to map that neuron
Hmm.
that goes to my
Yeah.
left toe and that goes to my left finger and that went to the left side of my face. So they wouldn't
Wow.
paralyze me.
Yeah.
Uh, because the tumor was right here in the right semiparietal lobe, where like a
Hmm.
lot of my sensory processing was. And
Yeah.
so he's the day of the surgery, it's the middle of the surgery. There's a piece of my skull laying on the table beside me, right?
Yeah.
He's in
Yeah.
the middle of the surgery. He runs into something that he hadn't expected. He left the OR for 45 minutes to call together the tumor board of all the other neurosurgeons that had helped to
Wow.
devise the treatment that I was going to have, to present this new information to them to come up with the best plan.
Wow.
Yeah. I mean,
Wow.
he
Yeah.
could have, I mean, he's one of the top 5 neurosurgeons in the world. He still is, like, he's not doing as many surgeries as he used to do, but he's still one of the keynote speakers at like neurosurgery conferences around the world. I mean, this man is
Wow. It's incredible.
brilliant.
That's
He
awesome.
knows his
And look
stuff.
at you now.
I know he could have continued on, but he
Yeah.
stopped and he called together an entire team to work the problem.
Yeah.
And
Takes the
that's
team.
it. That is the thing. It's having that humbleness to know I might be able to see a way through this,
Yeah.
but somebody else might see a better way.
That's right.
So,
Oh, so good. Mic
yeah.
drop. Perfect ending moment. Oh my gosh, this is so good. So good. Man, thank you, Suzann, for coming on here and sharing your story with us. What a fabulous journey you've had. And you're still not done yet. We got
I
like
know. I have a golf
decades
ball
more to
size
go in
hole in
us.
my brain. I don't know what everybody else's excuse is.
Right? Exactly. Like, what's your
It is
excuse?
it is wonderful to have that built-in excuse. I do have to
Right?
say that.
I love it. Yeah. Yeah. Anytime you forget something, like, oh, sorry, I've had
I've got a hole in my brain. Yeah.
It's like
Yeah.
that reminds me of going back to the Golden Girls. Whenever Sophia would be super rude, Dorothy would always like, "Sorry, mom has dementia. Sorry."
Yes, yes,
Just
exactly.
ignore her. She's just mean on purpose. She didn't realize it. But anyway,
I
tell everyone, where can they connect with you if they want to engage your services for their team or individually. What's the best place to consume your content or get in contact with you?
You can connect with me on Facebook at Wade Innovation, and Instagram is Wade_innovation. If you want to DM me, I'm perfect. It's perfectly fine to do that in either spot. My
Perfect.
website is wadeinnovation.com. And if you want to email me, you can email me at info@wadeinnovation.com.
And
So
we'll have all those links in the show notes for
yes,
you
but
guys.
I actually love DMs. I mean, so feel free to drop in my DMs.
Slide on over into
Slide on
DMs.
over.
She will have a lovely conversation with you. Thank you so much, Suzann, for your time. And thank you for being a queen that leads.
Thank you, Amy.
The Queen's Lead podcast is recorded worldwide and produced by the kick-ass media team at the Height Digital home base in Nicaragua. Until our next episode, stay real, queens, and go lead. Remember to tap that follow and leave your review. For freebies and more real, inspiring content you love, go to amysingleton.net and connect with Amy on her socials at @TheRealAmySingleton.
One more thing. This is the legal language, what my lawyer wrote and what I need to read to you. This podcast is presented for educational and entertainment purposes only. I am Amy Singleton, and I'm just your friend. Although I may speak to many on this show, I am not a psychotherapist, a business coach, a doctor, a CPA, a lawyer, or probably anyone who should be giving you professional advice. This podcast is not a substitute for a relationship with your doctor, coach, or any other licensed professional. Got it? Good. Now go be a queen and follow me at The Real Amy Singleton.